Warning, this audiobook isn't for everyone. We're plunging headfirst into the twisted world of Ponzi schemes, financial cons that have destroyed lives, crushed dreams, and exposed the ugliest corners of human greed. Expect raw stories of cunning fraudsters, devastated victims, and jaw-dropping collapses, all brought to life with gripping audio. Trigger warnings include financial ruin, betrayal, and the harsh reality of broken trust. This isn't a fluffy, feel-good listen. If you've got the stomach for it, stick around. If not, well, you've been warned.
Hey you! Yeah you. The one bold enough to hit play on Ponzi scheme scam in the United States. Big props to you. This isn't some breezy podcast or a snooze-fest finance lecture. You're about to plunge into the wildest financial scams in U.S. history. And I'm thrilled to be your guide on this roller coaster. So, why this audiobook? I've always been hooked on the sheer nerve of these schemes. How one smooth-talking hustler can trick thousands into handing over their cash with nothing but a grin and a fairy tale. But it's more than that. I wanted to peel back the headlines and dig into the real stories. The everyday people who lost it all. The con artists who thought they'd beat the game, and the lessons screaming at us from the wreckage. This isn't just about the past. It's a wake-up call for anyone tempted by a get-rich-quick mirage. Here's the deal. We're breaking down 5 epic Ponzi schemes, kicking off with Charles Ponzi's insane 1920s blueprint, then fast-forwarding to modern heavyweights like Bernie Madoff and Alan Stanford, who fleeced billions. You'll get the full scoop. How they tricked the masses, why people bought the hype, and the crazy moments it all unraveled. But I'm not just here to blow your mind. I want you to leave sharper, wiser, and ready to sniff out the next scam before it bites. Fair warning, this isn't a chill vibe. It's intense. It's real, and it might make you side-eye every golden opportunity that crosses your path. But if you're hooked on the dark side of money, or just want to armor up against the next big con, you're exactly where you need to be. Ready? Let's jump in.
Imagine investing your life savings into a scheme that promises to double your money in just 90 days. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, for thousands of people throughout history, it was. And it cost them everything. Welcome to the world of Ponzi schemes, where the promise of easy money hides a devastating fraud that's been tripping up Americans for over a century. So, what exactly is a Ponzi scheme? Picture this. It's like a financial house of cards, looking all shiny and stable from the outside, but built entirely on lies. The mastermind behind it takes cash from new investors to pay off the earlier ones, spinning an illusion of fat profits. For a while, everyone's happy, thinking they've struck gold. But here's the kicker. There's no real investment, no actual returns. It's just a game of musical chairs, and when the music stops, the whole thing crashes, leaving most people with nothing but empty pockets and broken dreams. These scams got their name from Charles Ponzi, an Italian con artist who pulled off a slick operation back in the 1920s. But don't let the old school vibe fool you. They're still alive and kicking today. Here's the deal. Ponzi schemes are totally illegal in the United States. You'd think that'd stop them, but nope. They keep popping up like weeds, costing Americans billions of dollars every single year. The FBI estimates these scams are a multi-billion-dollar problem annually, preying on folks who just want a shot at a better life. It's a harsh reality. Greed and trust can be a dangerous combo. In this audiobook, brought to you by PeyeC Radio on YouTube, we're diving deep into some of the wildest, most infamous Ponzi schemes in US history. We'll start with the OG himself, Charles Ponzi, and work our way up to modern-day fraudsters like Bernie Madoff, whose scam was so massive, it's still hard to wrap your head around. Along the way, we'll unpack how these cons worked, who got burned, and what red flags got ignored. But it's not just about the stories. Stick with us, and you'll walk away with some serious know-how on spotting these traps and keeping your money safe. So, let's kick things off where it all began, with the man who turned fraud into a household name, Charles Ponzi. But before we jump in, here's a question to chew on. Could you tell a Ponzi scheme from a legit opportunity if it landed in your inbox tomorrow? Hang tight, because by the end of this journey, you'll have the tools to figure that out. A world where you could double your money in just 90 days. No hard work, no risk, just hand over your cash and watch it grow like magic. Sounds too good to be true, right? Well, that's because it was. For thousands of people in the 1920s, this dream turned into a financial nightmare that would echo through history. Welcome to the original Ponzi scheme. A wild ride of big promises, bigger lies, and a collapse that left a nation reeling. Let's meet the man who started it all, Charles Ponzi. Picture this, a charming Italian immigrant stepping off a boat in Boston with nothing but $2.50 in his pocket and a head full of dreams. Ponzi wasn't your average guy. He had a silver tongue, a sharp mind, and an insatiable hunger for the good life. He'd bounced around odd jobs, waiting tables, peddling insurance, but nothing stuck. That is, until he hatched a plan that would make him infamous. His pitch? Invest with him, and he'd deliver a jaw-dropping 50% return in just 90 days. That's right. Give him your money, and in 3 months, you'd be swimming in profits. People ate it up. What was the secret? Sauce it? Ponzi claimed he'd cracked the code with something called International Postal Reply Coupons. These were obscure little vouchers you could buy in one country and redeem for stamps in another. Ponzi said he'd found a way to exploit price differences between nations, buy low here, sell high there, and pocket the difference. It sounded brilliant, technical, and just confusing enough that most people didn't bother to dig deeper. And why would they? The early investors got their payouts right on time, and word spread like wildfire. Soon, folks were lining up outside his office, practically begging to throw their savings at him. But here's the dirty little secret. Ponzi wasn't some financial genius. He was a con artist playing a high-stakes game of musical chairs. There was no postal coupon empire. Instead, he was pulling off a classic trick, using money from new investors to pay off the old ones. It's like borrowing from your neighbor to pay your landlord, then borrowing from your cousin to pay your neighbor. For a while, it worked like a dream. At his peak, Ponzi was raking in $250,000 a day. That's about $3.5 million in today's dollars. He bought a mansion, a slick car, and strutted around like a king. To the public, he was a financial messiah, a guy who'd beaten the system. But every Ponzi scheme has an expiration date, and Charles Ponzi's was no exception. The math just didn't add up. To keep the payouts flowing, he needed an endless flood of new cash, and that's a tall order. The first cracks appeared when a few sharp-eyed folks started asking questions. "Hey, Charles, how exactly are you making this money? Where's the proof of all these coupon trades?" Ponzi flashed his $1 million smile and dodged the answers, but the pressure was building. Then, in 1920, a bombshell dropped. A newspaper expose tore the mask off his operation, the truth. There weren't nearly enough postal coupons in the world to support the millions he claimed to be moving. It was all a mirage. Cue the chaos. Investors panicked, storming his office to yank their money out. But the vault was empty. The whole scheme collapsed faster than a house of cards in a hurricane. When the dust settled, Ponzi owed investors over $20 million, billions in today's terms, and most of them were left with nothing but regret. The law caught up quick. Ponzi was slapped with fraud charges and sentenced to 20 years in prison. And get this, even after doing time, he couldn't resist trying more scams. The guy was a hustler to the core. So, what's the lesson from Ponzi's wild tale? First, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Second, don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. Dig into the details. And third, never underestimate the power of a smooth talker. Charles Ponzi didn't invent financial fraud, but he branded it. His name became synonymous with schemes that prey on hope and greed, and his story was just the opening act for bigger disasters to come. Imagine a world where the most trusted name in finance was actually the biggest fraudster in history. What if I told you that one man managed to steal more money than the entire economies of some small countries? That's the story of Bernie Madoff, a Wall Street titan who took the Ponzi scheme game to a jaw-dropping new level. For over 20 years, he swindled billions from investors who thought they were in safe hands, only to watch it all come crashing down in one of the most infamous financial scandals ever. Buckle up, because this isn't just a scam. It's a financial catastrophe that shook the world to its core. Let's set the scene. Bernie Madoff wasn't some shady grifter working out of a basement. No, he was a Wall Street legend, a former chairman of NASDAQ, a pioneer in electronic trading, and a guy who hobnobbed with the financial elite. To the outside world, Madoff was the real deal. His investment fund promised steady, above-average returns year after year, no matter what the markets were doing. It was like a golden ticket, and people, rich, powerful, and desperate to get in, practically begged him to take their money. But behind the polished suits and charming smile was a lie so big, it's hard to wrap your head around. Here's how it worked. For over 2 decades, Madoff ran the mother of all Ponzi schemes. He didn't invest a single cent of his clients' cash. Instead, he used money from new investors to pay off the older ones. A classic Ponzi move, but executed on a scale never seen before. His firm churned out fake account statements and trade confirmations, making it look like he was a wizard who could defy the markets. He even had a team of loyal employees helping him keep the illusion alive. It was a masterclass in deception, and for a long time, it worked like a charm. Now, let's talk about the damage. By the time the truth came out, Madoff had stolen an estimated $65 billion from his investors. That's billion with a B. To put that in perspective, $65 billion is more than the GDP of countries like Luxembourg or Iceland. It's enough to buy a fleet of private jets, build a dozen skyscrapers, or fund a small army. And the victims? They weren't just Wall Street fat cats. Madoff's scam wiped out retirement savings, crushed charitable foundations, and left regular folks with nothing. Even celebrities like Kevin Bacon and Steven Spielberg got burned. This wasn't just a fraud, it was a financial tsunami. So how did he pull it off for so long? Simple: trust and greed. Madoff's reputation as a Wall Street genius made him untouchable. His so-called trading strategy was so complicated that most people didn't dare question it. Sure, there were red flags, whispers of something fishy, even a few whistleblowers who tried to sound the alarm. But regulators? They dropped the ball. Madoff's charm, his connections, and the sheer audacity of his lies kept the scheme humming along. It was the perfect con, until it wasn't. The breaking point came in 2008, when the financial crisis hit like a wrecking ball. As the markets tanked, investors started yanking their money out, desperate for cash. But here's the problem. There was no money to give back. Madoff's empire was a house of cards built on nothing but hot air. When the withdrawals piled up, he couldn't keep up the act. In a stunning twist, he confessed to his sons, who promptly turned him in to the authorities. The news hit like a thunderbolt. Bernie Madoff, the man everyone trusted, was a fraud. Game over. In 2009, justice caught up with him. Madoff was sentenced to 150 years in prison, the maximum penalty allowed by law. It was a historic moment, a loud and clear message that financial fraud this massive wouldn't be tolerated. But for the victims, it was a hollow victory. Billions were gone, lives were ruined, and the fallout lingered for years. Madoff's scam didn't just break bank accounts, it broke trust in the entire financial system. But Madoff wasn't the only one playing this high-stakes game. What if I told you that a man once knighted by a foreign government, celebrated as a financial wizard, and living a life dripping with extravagance, was secretly running one of the most audacious Ponzi schemes in history? That's the wild tale of Robert Allen Stanford. And trust me, this story's got more twists than a Hollywood thriller. Up next, we'll uncover a scam that cost investors billions and landed its mastermind behind bars. Welcome to Step 4. The Stanford Financial Group Scheme. Picture this. It's the late 1980s, and a Texas-born charmer named Robert Allen Stanford steps onto the financial stage. Born in 1950, this guy was larger than life. Think big personality, bigger dreams, and an ego to match. He built an empire that stretched across the globe, dabbling in banking, real estate, and even cricket. Yeah, cricket. But here's the kicker. Beneath all that glitz, his whole operation was a house of cards, built on one massive, devastating lie. Stanford had a pitch that was pure gold, or so it seemed. He told investors, "Put your money into certificates of deposit or CDs through my bank in Antigua, and you'll get returns that'll make your head spin. Double, even triple what any US bank could offer." It was the kind of deal that made retirees, dreamers, and everyday folks sit up and say, "Sign me up." But here's the dirty secret. Those CDs, they weren't backed by some genius investment strategy. Nope. Stanford was pulling the oldest trick in the Ponzi playbook, using cash from new investors to pay off the old ones. A classic scam, but with a slick international twist. In a 2008 interview, Stanford dropped this gem. "We're not in the business of taking risks. We're in the business of managing risks." Oh man, that's rich. The only risk he was managing was how long he could keep this whole charade from crashing down. And for over 20 years, yep, 2 decades, he kept the illusion alive, raking in billions while investors bought the dream. Now, let's talk red flags, because they were waving like crazy. Stanford's returns were insane, consistently sky high, even when the markets were tanking. That's not normal, right? Plus, his bank was parked in Antigua, a sunny little island known more for beaches than airtight financial oversight. Sketchy much? But here's the wild part. People didn't care. Blinded by dollar signs and Stanford's charm, they ignored the warning signs and kept pouring money in. Greed's a heck of a drug, huh? And where were the regulators in all this? Well, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, poked around Stanford's operation a few times over the years. But they didn't dig deep enough to smell the fraud. It wasn't until Bernie Madoff's scam blew up in 2008 that they went, wait a sec, maybe we should take another look at this Stanford guy. Spoiler alert, they should have looked sooner. Stanford lived like he was untouchable. Private jets? Check. A yacht that screamed, "I've made it"? You bet. He even dumped $20 million into a cricket tournament, because why not, right? He once bragged, "I'm not a pirate, I'm a liberator." Liberator. More like a looter. While he was living the high life, his investors were unknowingly funding the party. And it was a party that cost them $7 billion, billion with a B, folks. That's enough to buy a small country or bankroll a superhero franchise. One victim, a retired teacher, put it like this: "I trusted him with my life savings, and he stole it all. It's like he took my future and threw it away." That's the human cost of this scam. Real people, real dreams, crushed under the weight of Stanford's greed. But hold up, this isn't the end of the story. That $7 billion empire, it was about to come crashing down, hard. In the next section, we'll dive into how the 2008 financial crisis ripped the mask off Stanford's scheme and sent him straight to a prison cell for a 110-year timeout. Stay tuned for the fall of Alan Stanford. Last time, we listened to how Robert Alan Stanford built a glittering empire on a foundation of lies. Now, let's dive into the chaos of 2008, when the financial world turned upside down and Stanford's scam finally unraveled. Get ready for the next step, the fall of Alan Stanford. If you thought the rise of Alan Stanford was wild, buckle up, because his fall is straight up cinematic. Picture this: a billionaire con man, a global financial meltdown, and a $7 billion house of cards crashing down. Yeah, this is the part where greed gets a reality check, and it ain't pretty. So, how did one of America's slickest scammers go from private jets to prison bars? Let's break it down. It's 2008, and the world's losing its mind. The economy's tanking harder than a bad TikTok trend. Lehman Brothers is toast, markets are bleeding red, and people are freaking out. In the middle of this mess stands Alan Stanford, Texas-born, Antigua-based, and living like a king. For over 20 years, his Stanford financial group had been raking in billions, promising investors insane returns on these fancy certificates of deposit, or CDs. We're talking 9 to 10%, a year when banks were offering like 2%. Investors ate it up, retirees, doctors, even whole families, dazzled by Stanford's charm and his offshore empire. But here's the tea. It was all a sham. A Ponzi scheme so smooth, it'd make Charles Ponzi himself jealous. Stanford wasn't. Investing their cash, he was just shuffling it around, paying old investors with new money while pocketing millions for himself. Private jets? Check. Yachts? Check. A $20 million cricket tournament because why not? Check. The dude was living his best life until the music stopped. So 2008 rolls in like a wrecking ball. The financial crisis has everyone spooked, and Stanford's investors start pulling out cash faster than you can say recession. Problem is, there's nothing to pull. The whole operation's a giant IOU with no real assets backing it. Think of it like a game of musical chairs, except when the music stops, there's no chair, just a big fat zero. Stanford's team is scrambling, trying to keep the illusion alive, but the math's not mathing. You need a constant flood of new money to keep a Ponzi scheme afloat, and with the economy in the gutter, that flood's dried up. It's like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. The pressure's building, and the cracks are showing. Investors are getting antsy, asking questions like, "Yo, where's my money?" And Stanford, he's still out there flashing that $1 million smile, acting like everything's cool. But behind the scenes, it's chaos. Fam, then boom, February 2009 hits, and the SEC finally drops the hammer. Yep, just months after Bernie Madoff's scam blew up, they're like, "Oh wait, we've got another one." The feds charged Stanford with running a massive fraud. Turns out they'd been side-eyeing him for years, but never pulled the trigger. Until now. The news explodes. Another Wall Street big shot's a crook. Investors are gutted. We're talking life savings. Poof, gone. One retired nurse put it like this: "He didn't just steal my money, he stole my peace of mind." Oof, that hits hard. Stanford's empire, once hyped as a $7 billion juggernaut, is exposed as a total fraud. The CDs? Worthless. The returns? Fake. The guy's been cooking the books with more creativity than a Hollywood scriptwriter. And the fallout? Brutal. Investors get back pennies on the dollar. If that's not fast forward to 2012, Stanford's in court, and it's game over. The judge ain't playing. He sentences him to 110 years in prison. That's basically a life sentence for a dude in his 60s. The judge calls it one of the most serious frauds ever presented to a trial jury in federal court. Yikes. From billionaire baller to inmate number whatever, Stanford's fall is as dramatic as it gets. His toys, jets, yachts, cricket dreams, all seized. His investors left picking up the pieces. So, what's the vibe here? First off, if someone's promising you crazy returns with no risk, run the other way. It's a trap. Second, offshore doesn't mean legit. It often means sketchy. And third, charm can be a con artist's best weapon. Stanford had the swagger, the smile, the whole package, and it blinded people to the truth. This is your wake-up call. Greed's fragile, and scams like this can hide in plain sight. Previously, we listened to Alan Stanford's empire crash and burn. Now let's get smart and talk about how to spot these scams before they snag you. Ready for the next step? How to avoid Ponzi schemes. We've been diving deep into the wild world of Ponzi schemes. Charles Ponzi's OG con, Madoff's Wall Street disaster, and Stanford's billion-dollar blow-ups. These stories are juicy, sure, but they all end the same way, with regular folks like you and me left holding an empty bag. So today, we're flipping the script. No more victim vibes. We're here to arm you with the tools to dodge these traps like a pro. Think of this as your scam spotting survival guide. Let's jump in. First up, here's the big one. If an investment's promising you sky-high returns with little or no risk, hit the brakes. Hard. Like if someone slides into your DM saying, invest $1,000 today, get $10,000 by Friday, zero stress. That's not a golden ticket. That's a red flag waving in your face. Real talk. In the legit investing world, high rewards always come with high risks. Ponzi schemes bank on you ignoring that truth, dangling easy money like bait on a hook. Ever seen those sketchy online ads promising you'll make millions overnight? Same energy. If it sounds too good to be true, fam, it probably is. Tattoo that on your brain. Next, don't just take their word for it. Do your research. And I'm not talking about glancing at some glossy website with stock photos of happy investors. Dig deeper. Who's running this thing? Are they registered with the SEC? Can you find legit financial statements? Or is it all vague promises and hype? If the info's thin or shady, that's your first clue something's off. It's like buying a deal phone online without reading the reviews. Next thing you know, you've got a brick in the mail instead of an iPhone. Here's a quick hack. Google the company name plus Ponzi scheme or scam. If angry, blog posts or lawsuits pop up, you've got your answer. And if they're pushing some exclusive offshore opportunity, double check that. Offshore can mean fancy, but it often means impossible to track when they ghost with your cash. Do the work, fam. It's your money on the line. Third step, bring in a pro. Talk to a financial advisor. But here's the catch. Make sure they're not pocketing a commission from the deal you're eyeing. You want someone who's team you, not team scam. A solid advisor's like a scam-sniffing dog. They'll spot the BS from a mile away. They'll ask stuff like, where's the money actually going? Or why are these returns so perfect when the market's a roller coaster? If they squint and say, this doesn't add up, trust them. They're your shield against the Ponzi plague. Okay, let's get personal for a minute. Ponzi schemes don't just trick your wallet, they mess with your head. They're built to hook your greed and blind your trust. You'll hear stuff like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Or, our investors are raking it in, join the club. They'll flash big smiles, fake stats, maybe even a rented Lambo. But if your gut's whispering, this feels weird, listen up. Ask questions, demand proof. If they dodge, deflect, or guilt trip you, that's your exit sign. Scammers are smooth talkers. Don't let them play you. So here's your Ponzi-proof playbook. High returns with no risk. Nope, out of there. Research everything. Google's your best friend. Talk to an advisor. Get that unbiased second opinion. These 3 moves are like your financial seatbelt. Strap in, and you're way less likely to crash. Ponzi schemes thrive on people skipping these steps, but not you. You're smarter than that now. We listened to you with the Scam Spotting Toolkit. Now, let's wrap it all up and see why Ponzi schemes are still lurking in the shadows. Hey fam, you are listening PeyeC Radio. We've been on a wild ride through the dark underbelly of financial scams, haven't we? From Charles Ponzi's slick 1920s hustle to Bernie Madoff's Wall Street wreckage and Alan Stanford's billion-dollar blowouts. we've seen how these schemes can turn dreams into dust. But here's the real tea. Ponzi schemes aren't just old news. They're still out there, waiting to snatch your cash and your trust. So, let's zoom out for a sec. Why do these scams keep coming back like a bad ex? And what's the big lesson for us regular folks? Buckle up. This is step 7, and we're about to break it all down. Let's cut to the chase. Greed doesn't have an expiration date. As long as people are chasing that get-rich-quick vibe, scammers will be right there, dangling the bait. In the US, Ponzi schemes are a multi-billion-dollar problem. Like, we're talking billions. The FBI says investment fraud, including these schemes, pulls in over $40 billion a year. That's more than the GDP of some countries. And it's not just the Madoffs or Stanfords of the world. Smaller cons are everywhere. From shady crypto hype to fake real estate promises. It's like a game of whack-a-mole. Smack one down and another pops up smirking. But here's the sneaky part. These scams don't just work because of money lust. They thrive on trust. Think about it. Charles Ponzi, Bernie Madoff, Alan Stanford, they weren't creepy randos in trench coats. They were charming, smooth-talking pros who made you feel like you were part of an exclusive club. That's the trap, fam. They're not obvious villains. They're the nice guy advisor or the genius with a secret sauce. And that's what makes them so dang dangerous. Okay, let's get real for a minute. Ponzi schemes don't just drain your bank account. They break your spirit. Picture this. You've been saving for years, dreaming of a chill retirement, maybe a little beach house. Then, bam, it's all gone. One of Madoff's victims put it like this. It's like waking up to find your whole life was a lie. That hits hard, right? These scams don't care who you are. Teachers, nurses, grandparents, they'll take anyone down. And the worst part, that money's usually gone forever. No rewind button, no oops, my bad. Why does this matter to you? Because it's not just other people's problems. It could be your mum, your bestie, or even you. That's why we've got to keep our eyes open and spread the word. So what have we learned from this wild ride? Here's your anti-scam armor, fam. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. High returns, no risk. That's a red flag waving in your face. Do your homework. Dig into the company, the people, the deal. Google's free. Use it. Talk to a pro. Hit up a financial advisor who's not on the scammer's payroll. Trust your gut. If something feels sketchy, don't sleep on it. Ask hard questions. Demand receipts. These aren't just random tips. They're your superpower. Ponzi schemes are like financial vampires. They hate the light. Shine these moves on them, and they'll scatter like roaches. Here's the bottom line. Ponzi schemes are a legit problem in the US, and they're not going anywhere soon. But you don't have to be their next meal. You've got the tools now. A little skepticism, some research skills, and a big ol' "nah, that's sus" attitude. Use them. Share them with your crew. The best way to beat these scams. Stay one step ahead, always. Now, let's talk about what to do if you think you're in one. Ready for next step? We've been on a wild ride together, digging into the jaw-dropping scams of Charles Ponzi, Bernie Madoff, and Alan Stanford, and dropping some serious knowledge on how to spot these traps before they snag you. But today's different. This is for anyone who's got that sinking feeling in their gut, wondering if that golden opportunity they sank cash into might actually be a house of cards. If that's you, or if you just want to be ready, this is Step 8, Call to Action. Let's dive in. Picture this. You're sitting there, coffee gone cold, staring at a bank statement that doesn't add up. The promises were big, 50% returns, guaranteed profits. But now the numbers are shrinking, and the excuses are piling up. That's the moment it hits you. You've been scammed. And man, it's not just about the money. It's the sting of betrayal, the way it creeps into your head and makes you question everything. One victim of Madoff's scheme put it like this: "It's like waking up to find your whole life was a lie." That's real. But here's the good news. You're not stuck. You've got a way out, and it starts right now. Okay, so you're mad, you're hurt. Maybe you're tempted to just shove it under the rug and move on. Big mistake. A Ponzi scheme's like a leaky roof in a storm. You can toss a bucket under it and call it a day, but that water's not stopping. It's gonna keep dripping, flooding your life until the whole ceiling caves in. Scammers bank on you staying quiet, too embarrassed or scared to act. But waiting? That's how they win. Every second you hesitate, they're cashing out with your money. You've got to grab the tools and patch that leak before it's too late. Let's talk about how. So, what's your play? You go straight to the big guns, the Securities and Exchange Commission, aka the SEC. These guys are the financial world's watchdogs, built to hunt down fraud and shield investors like you. If you've got a hunch you're in a Ponzi scheme, don't sleep on it. Reach out to the SEC pronto. Here's how. Jump online to sec.gov and file a tip, or dial their hotline at 1-800-SCTO30. It's free, it's private, and it's your fastest way to slam the brakes on the scam. Not sure if it's legit fraud? No sweat. The SEC's got a team of investigators who'll sniff it out. You're not pointing fingers, you're just ringing the bell. Better to be safe than sorry, right? Now, I know what you might be thinking. Man, I feel so dumb. What if people find out? Listen up, don't let that stop you. Ponzi schemes don't care if you're a genius or a rookie. Madoff fooled Oscar winners. Stanford tricked millionaires. Greed's a trap for everyone. And here's the kicker. Tons of victims who spoke up actually got some of their money back. One expert said it best. The first step to recovery is admitting there's a problem. Don't let shame or fear keep you from seeking help. You're not the fool here. You're the one about to flip the script. This isn't just about you, fam. Ponzi schemes are a plague. They spread fast, leaving wrecked lives in their wake. When you step up, you're not just clawing back your own cash. You're throwing a wrench in the scammer's whole operation. Think of it like this. You're the first one to spot smoke in a crowded room and yell, "Fire!" Scary? Sure. But it's how you save the day. By acting, you're shielding your neighbors, your friends, maybe even someone listening to this right now. That's power. All right, here's the deal. If you're even kinda suspicious you're in a Ponzi scheme, move fast. Hit up the SEC, grab a lawyer if you can, and start rounding up anything you've got. Emails, contracts, receipts, you name it. The clock's ticking, and every minute you wait, that scammer's one step closer to jetting off with your cash. You've got the tools, you've got the know-how. Use it. Now. Not in a scam, but want to stay sharp. Check out sec.gov/investor for more on dodging fraud. Knowledge is your armor, fam. Wear it proud.
Oh yes, you are listening. Ponzi Scheme Scam in the United States, Part 2. Written by Asan Shikhtar Babu, voiced by Olivia Benson, Harry Bosch, and Dr. Temperance Brennan. Audio mixing and presented by PeyeC Radio.